Hi everyone, Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master here. So today I actually wanted to talk about kind of an interesting phenomenon that happens when I fix a problem. Occasionally I'll fix a problem and another problem will become more apparent, right? Now there are a few reasons for this, and I'm not going to go into all of them in this video, but there's one specifically around beliefs and how they function, right? So with traumas, when I remove a trauma, um, you know, other traumas will kind of bubble to the surface. And the reason for that is because your mind for the first time realizes it can actually heal, right? It's never ever experienced true healing before. And so it says, hey, fix all of this stuff, right? And so that's kind of like on the trauma side, it just like it breathes air for the first time ever, and it's like I want more of that, right? But on the belief side, it's a little bit different, right? Because on the belief side, because of the levels that I'm working on people, very often they don't actually realize a shift has happened, right? And that kind of can manifest in a couple ways. Is that one? And they're like, um, well, I don't feel any different, right? And then I ask, okay, well, what do you feel about this subject, right? Or whatever the problem was. And they're like, oh, it's the fixed version, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what you just said a second ago, right? Like you were adamant that this was a problem. Now you're like, no, it's never been a problem, right? What are you talking about? Um, so there's this video going around that I thought was humorous. There's this black guy, and he says, when I snap my fingers, you'll forget that you were ever gay, right? And then the other guy's like, what are you talking about? I was never gay. And he's like, yes, yes, I believe you, right? He's like, no, 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 I was never gay, right? He's like, yes, yes, if you say so, right? And it's like exactly like what happens when I shift beliefs sometimes is like they don't even realize that they ever had a wrong belief, right? Because it just shifts so instantly and so powerfully, they can't even believe that they had the previous belief. But on in terms of like actually potentially surfacing new problems, um, the mechanics behind that are a little bit different, right? So it's not like your mind realizes what happens and what happened, and it's like, oh, I want more of that. There's actually a different mechanism happening, and it's very much um, explainable with electricity, right? With electromagnetism. So let me just go ahead and kind of pull up a whiteboard real quick, and I'll show you mechanically one of the reasons why you might feel other problems, right? So specifically how this would come up with limiting beliefs. Um, I actually experienced this myself when I trained someone else to shift my beliefs, and I finally got the help that I needed for so long. And like I would be like, okay, this is the biggest block that I have, right? I just need this removed, and I'll be totally fine, right? And we'd remove that, and then like I'd be like, oh, now I have this new block, right? And it's like it wasn't really a new block; it was still there, but I didn't realize it was there until we fixed the previous block, right? And so it was like, oh, now this is the biggest problem. Then we'd fix that. It's like, oh, shoot, now this is the biggest problem. So we went through, 6 or 7 evolutions of that before we actually um, fully fixed the pathways, right? And so that's really what we're talking about is making the path straight, right? Making the pathways straight in your mind. And so if you were to look at an electrical analogy to what's happening in the mind, because the mind is electrical, we can very easily demonstrate what happens in electrical current by drawing what would basically be a water pipeline, right? And so in an ideal world, you would have water flowing through the pipeline completely unobstructed, right? As much current, as much water as there was to flow through the pipe could get through, assuming that the pipe was the right size, right? It was a normal pipe. Now, when you have a limiting belief, what happens is you get in, what's called in electrical terminology resistance, okay? and that obstructs the flow of electricity, or according to this diagram, the flow of water, right? So what you would have is you would have essentially kind of a closing off of the pipeline, and depending on how much resistance, how much pressure was trying to cause that, it would create what is essentially a much narrower pipe, right? So let's say normally the pipe is a 10 width, right? So water should just be able to flow at, 10 units per, amount of time. But when you have this block, let's say it's a 4, right? Or let me actually put this here so it'll be a little bit easier for you to understand, right? This gap is only 4 wide, right? So when you have water trying to flow through the pipe, no matter how much water is over here trying to get through, only 4 water can actually flow through, right? So then it's kind of flowing through all the way through the pipe at 4. Okay? So that's if you have one block. But let's say you have multiple blocks and you don't realize it. Okay? So let's go ahead and redraw this. Let's say you have some blocks here, right? And it's not as bad of a block. Maybe this is a little bit more open. So this is like a 6. And then you have another block, right, that's even not as bad as the previous one, and this would be an 8, right? So, what's normally happening, electrically speaking, and we can demonstrate with that with the water, no matter how much water is trying to go through this pipe, it will never be more than 4. And if you're amazing at math like I am, you'll realize that 4 is a smaller number than 6, and 6 is a smaller number than 8, which means as the water flows through the pipe, it never actually encounters the resistance that's there. You don't actually realize that there is a block because there's not enough current, enough water, enough electrical flow to actually be obstructed by that resistance, right? So, what happens when I remove a block and you say, oh, this is the block that is holding me back, and if I could just get rid of this block, I'll be 100% perfect, my life will be great. Okay, let's test that theory, right? Let me completely, instantly, and immediately powerfully remove that block. Well, now you have this wall of water now going through the pipe at 10 units, and what happens? Uh-oh. This block that was not actually causing a problem, it now feels like the biggest problem in the world. You're like, oh my gosh, now this whole wave of electricity is now trying to punch through this hole that's, not quite the right size, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, now I have this new block. I don't know where this came from. Can you help me with this? Yeah, let's do that, right? Let's let's fix this block as well, right? So then we fix this block. And then what happens, right? You have all this water trying to push through at 10 units, and then all of a sudden, oh, you hit another block. It can't go through except at 8 units, right? And, I don't, this is a scale of 10. It could be a scale of 100, a scale of 1,000. I don't know, but you could have blocks all the way along that you don't even know exist because the first block is so significant, you're not getting enough electricity flowing through that line, right? And so it's only when we fix all of the blocks and there is no obstruction whatsoever that now the current can actually flow through unobstructed. So this is something I've been pondering for a while, and I didn't really quite understand how to explain it until I experienced it myself, and then I had to ponder it, to even put it into words, or to put it into any kind of something that I could understand, much less explain to other people. But this is one of the things that's happening, right? Is you have so much electrical current that wants to go through a certain pathway, and it can't because it's blocked. And then when I remove that block, then you realize that's not the only block you have. You probably have, if not one more, then several more. And so basically it's a process, right? Just because I can fix a block better than anybody else doesn't mean that you don't have a lot of blocks that need to go through, right? And so we'll just keep fixing them, keep fixing them, keep fixing them, right? And then of course I'm trying to record everything now, so so you say, hey, well, we didn't actually do anything, like you didn't change anything. I go back and show the recording, you're like, you're adamant, like, this is my problem, this is my problem, and I fix it, and you're like, no, that was never my problem. Well, that's a whole nother video of how and why that happens. But as far as feeling a new block that you didn't experience before, right? And you think, oh, well, this guy actually made me worse, right? It's partly because you can't remember what I fixed, but also partly because the obstruction was just never allowed to be an obstruction. So hopefully this is simple for you. Um, I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't have a background in electricity. So if I misrepresented this, it's not in bad faith. This is my understanding of electricity and how it works. If anyone, thinks that that was not an accurate representation, I would love to actually learn more about it, because everything I do is electrical. So the more I understand it, the more I can understand how to help people. But yeah, basically, the block you think is the block is not the block, right? And it will be several blocks before we actually get through everything that's holding you back. And then once that electrical current is flowing, you'll just be like, you'll be working so hard, so fast, taking so much action, doing stuff that you never even thought possible. It will be so easy, you won't even realize you're doing it, and you won't even realize it was difficult for you before. I actually talked with one of my clients I've done a lot of work on, and I had referenced them in a video, and they were like, "Ah, I saw your video," and they were like, "I can't even believe that I was that screwed up. Like, I can't even remember being that screwed up." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but that's how it works, right?" So I'll make another video about, like I said, about why you can't remember what I fix, and all of that stuff, because there's a few layers to that. But hopefully this is insightful for you. If I do work on you and you end up feeling worse, it's one this is one of the reasons, and I'm not gonna leave you in a bad spot, right? So, if you feel like you got worse, then just let me know and we'll fix it, right? It's not like, the end of the world. It's only when you decide to stop working with me that whatever we change becomes permanent, right? So make sure when you stop working with me, you're at a good place, right? So just so you know, everything is changeable, but we're looking on the grand scale of things. Ultimately, you are better, you make progress, all of that, but we could have specific shifts where you're like, actually I feel worse than before, even though you're objectively better. But then we can still work through that, and actually clear out the reason for that. So hopefully this made sense. Thank you for watching. If you want to check out my group, and follow me on Facebook, the link is in the comments, and I'll see you around. All right. Bye.